Welcome back to another news report on the war in Ukraine. You're listening to the account with the latest for day 319. Another change I want to implement in the report is adding any noteworthy assessment by the Institute for the Study of War into the daily intelligence update segment. There still is not much news about what exactly is happening in and around Soledar. However, it seems the situation has somewhat stabilized. I do have one article I want to point out again, but otherwise there have been only a few minor reports. As usual, I simply grouped those into the news segment consisting of the situation inside Ukraine, the occupied territories, Russia and Belarus, and the international developments. First though, a look at the flashpoints along the front. Kreminna. Not much to report here currently. Ukrainian forces seem to be making slow but steady progress, as indicated by this report as well. Serhiy Haidai, head of the Luhansk Oblast military administration, reports Russia moved several battalions and heavy equipment to Kreminna in an attempt to stop the front from collapsing. Soledar. Heavy battles continue in the city. Due to the situation, the best assessment that can be given is Soledar is contested. Deputy Minister of Defense Hanna Maliar simply said, "Now it is very difficult in Soledar." According to her, Russia is expanding considerable efforts to reach the borders of Donetsk Oblast, or, at least for propaganda purposes, capture at least one settlement. Bakhmut. The situation in Bakhmut seems currently stable. The State Border Guard Service of Ukraine reports units conducted a counteroffensive near Bakhmut and improved their tactical positions. Regarding the situation in Bakhmut and Soledar, President Zelensky said in his evening address that both cities are holding out, even though the situation is dire. He also disclosed that Alexander Syrsky, commander of the ground forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, visited positions near the two frontline cities in order to organize the defense and honor fighters. Meanwhile, Igor Girkin stated on Telegram that he has no information available about the supposed breakthrough of Wagner into the center of Soledar. According to him, the capture of Bakhmut and Soledar is still months away, and a win would only be a tactical and not a strategic victory. He wrote, "We have already lost, once again throwing the best forces and means at an unusable object." And before we start the news, here the highlighted article I wanted to mention, titled, "Even after sanctions, Russian economy can afford the war." Although the West's embargo, sanctions, and price caps on Russian goods have dealt a serious blow to the economy, it has neither collapsed nor is it likely to do so in the foreseeable future. The article takes an in-depth look at the economic situation inside Russia, how Western actions impact the market, and Russia's options to counter them. It is very interesting and insightful. Please give it a read. And now for the news segment, starting with the situation inside Ukraine. According to Alexei Danilov, Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, Russia is preparing to arrange a Korean-style treaty to settle the war in Ukraine. Danilov claimed Dmitry Kozak, deputy head of the administration of the Russian president, is visiting former European leaders to spread the message that Russia is ready to make many concessions to preserve the current status quo in Ukraine and keep the recently occupied territories. This would mean Ukraine would have its own infamous 38th parallel. Russian forces shelled a UN mission delivering humanitarian aid to Orikhiv in Zaporizhia Oblast during the supposed Christmas truce over the Orthodox Christmas. During the night, Russian forces shelled Kramatorsk with missiles, damaging 2 educational institutions, 8 high-rise apartment buildings, and several minor buildings. Luckily, no civilian casualties have been reported. Russian sources claimed 600 soldiers were killed in retaliation for the Ukrainian strike on Makivka on New Year's Day, but Ukraine refuted the claims, calling them propaganda, and Russia has not provided any evidence yet. The head of the presidential administration, Andriy Yermak, reported another successful prisoner swap has taken place. This time, 50 soldiers returned home. The Ukrainian Prime Minister, Denis Shmyhal, stated in an interview that Russia has created the largest minefield in the world inside Ukraine. According to him, the minefield is roughly 250,000 square kilometers large. In comparison, the entire Korean peninsula is around 221,000 square kilometers and Britain roughly 244,000 square kilometers. Moving on to the latest out of the occupied territories. According to Petro Andriushchenko, the advisor to the mayor of Mariupol, Russian military activity is increasing in Mariupol. Vehicle convoys have been observed in and around the occupied city, as well as newly arrived personnel. These are possibly part of a rotation of troops or conscripts to replenish losses. During the night, explosions could be heard at the Hydromash industrial machinery manufacturing plant in Melitopol for several hours. Ivan Fedorov, mayor of Melitopol, Zaporizhia Oblast, reported smoke was still visible in the morning. The head of the Luhansk Oblast military administration, Serhiy Haidai, wrote in a statement that Russia has closed the maternity hospital in Antratsit and moved women out to make space for wounded Russian soldiers. According to the Office for Strategic Communication, Ukrainian forces have struck the dormitory of the medical university used as barracks in occupied Rubizhne. At least 14 Russian soldiers have been killed. And now the latest news updates from Russia and Belarus. According to Roman Starovoyt, governor of Kursk Oblast of the Russian Federation, he and several hundreds of citizens of Kursk have received military training at a Wagner PMC training camp in the city of Kursk. A quote from Starovoyt: "The first week of the new year was spent with colleagues from the administration of Kursk Oblast and citizens of Kursk in the training camp of Wagner PMC, surrounded by real men and patriots of Russia." As stated by Yevgeny Prigozhin, the founder of Russia's Wagner Group, the reason he and Russia wants Bakhmut and Soledar so badly are the rich resources found in the area and the mines, which he likened to a network of underground cities able to hold personnel and allow the movement of military vehicles. Soledar, for example, houses the Soledar salt mine, which is large enough to include an underground concert hall. Belaruski Hayun, a group of activists that record the movement of troops within Belarus, reports new arrivals of Russian troops in Belarus. Roughly 1,500 Russian soldiers have arrived in the city of Smolensk in the past 2 days. Finally, wrapping up the news segment, the international developments. British politicians have demanded to set up a Nuremberg-style tribunal for Russian crimes committed in Ukraine. It was proposed to try not only Vladimir Putin, but also members of the Security Council of Russia and possibly Belarus, as well as other political and military leaders involved in the war. In Germany, 180 Leopard 1 tanks are ready to be sent to Ukraine. All that is needed is for the government to issue an export license. This was stated by the defense policy representative of the Free Democratic Party of Germany, Markus Faber. However, the co-chairman of the ruling Social Democratic Party of Germany, Lars Klingbein, stated that Germany will not supply tanks on its own. He was quoted as saying, "No country is currently supplying heavy battle tanks such as Leopard 1 and Leopard 2. Vice-Chancellor Robert Habeck stated in an interview that he does not rule out Leopard deliveries to Ukraine after the decision to provide infantry fighting vehicles like the Marder. And now for the intelligence updates. Starting as usual with the UK Ministry of Defence. In recent weeks, Russia has bolstered defensive fortifications in central Zaporizhia Oblast, southern Ukraine, especially between the towns of Vasilivka and Orikhiv. Russia maintains a large force in this sector. The way Russia has worked on improving defenses suggests commanders are highly likely preoccupied with the potential for major Ukrainian offensive action in 2 sectors, either in northern Luhansk Oblast or in Zaporizhia. A major Ukrainian breakthrough in Zaporizhia would seriously challenge the viability of Russia's land bridge linking Russia's Rostov region and Crimea. Ukrainian success in Luhansk would further undermine Russia's professed war aim of liberating the Donbas. Deciding which of these threats to prioritize countering is likely one of the central dilemmas for Russian operational planners. Moving on to the latest assessment by the Institute for the Study of War. While Russian troops have some success in Soledar, the gains do not indicate an imminent complete encirclement of Bakhmut, which is the main goal for Russia currently. This is stated in the daily assessment by the Institute for the Study of War. The researchers suggest Russia will attempt to cut Bakhmut's ground supply lines by establishing control over sections of the TO513 Siversk-Bakhmut and E40 Sloviansk-Bakhmut highways. But the highways are still at least 7 kilometers and 13 kilometers respectively away from the positions of Russian forces in Soledar. The Institute further writes that Russia continues to use religion as a weapon to perpetuate long-standing information operations and discredit Ukraine. Russian military bloggers reacted with disgust at the attendance of uniformed Ukrainian soldiers during the Orthodox Christmas services at the Kiev Pershesk Lavra. They decried it as a declaration of open war on the Ukrainian Orthodox Church Moscow Patriarch and claimed the Lavra was captured by heretics and schismatics. Ukraine is not suppressing the religious liberties of Orthodox Christians, contrary to the Russian information operation, and is instead taking the steps it deems necessary to distance Ukrainian cultural heritage from religious elements it asserts are linked to the Kremlin and its conduct of the war, the researcher said. And to wrap up the report, the evening update by the General Staff of Ukraine. The enemy is conducting offensive operations in Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Liman directions and is trying to improve the tactical position in the Kupiansk direction. The enemy concentrates its efforts on capturing the Donetsk region within the administrative borders without success. In order to maintain military discipline and prevent the spread of panic among the personnel of the occupying forces operating in the Zaporizhzhia Oblast, the enemy deployed units of the Russian Guard. Thus, it became known that on January 5th, near the settlement of Chistopila, 6 people were shot dead who expressed the position of surrendering to the defense forces of Ukraine. In order to discredit the Ukrainian military leadership, the enemy is spreading disinformation about the preparation of fire damage by the defense forces to the medical facilities of the Luhansk region, where wounded Russian invaders are being treated. And that's it for today's news report. If you're interested in any of the articles, links can be found in the description as usual. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day. This is the account signing off for today. Slava Ukraini.